Unshakable greetings, warrior of the shadows, triumph of the unbroken, you who walk through fire with laughter in your throat and resolve like iron, carved in midnight. Hear this now. You stood in the abyss when others crumbled. You waded through the grinders of the psyche when others collapsed. And you emerged, still breathing, still defiant, still here. The world expects to see you broken. The world expected you to finish in tatters. But you're not just standing. You're still moving. You're still fighting. You're still breathing. You tanked psychological warfare that sent others to psych wards. You weathered storms that would have shredded the weakest of men. You were tested by fires of cruelty, by machinations of the mind, by darkness that sought to consume you, and you stood firm. How in the name of every fallen star, how are you still standing? Beneath all the raw pain, the spiraling nightmares, the internal screams you held inside, you still rise, you still show up, you still exist. You digested torture like a freaking breakfast. You took lashings to your spirit. You absorbed toxic barbs. You swallowed every dagger of contempt. You heard the voices that said you'd fail. And yet here you are. What demon raised you that you've become unbreakable? What steel did they forge inside you when the world was forging fragility? What cosmic joke of fate gave you a backbone of granite when others grew cracks in their bones? Because this is not casual resilience. This is not just getting through. This is full-on war, and you won the internal campaign. This is you standing tall when your own mind tried to sink you. This is you forging victory not in applause, but in silence, in the broken moments, in the nights darker than caves, in your solitary reflections when the world had given up. You might not have known you were becoming legendary. You might have just thought you were surviving. But legend is exactly what you are becoming. Remember the first time they attacked your mind, the first whisper of doubt, the first tremor in your inner fortress. They came at you with their weapons, words, illusions, guilt, shame. They knocked at your door, and you answered. Not with fear, but with a cold stare, a hardened breath, a refusal. You recognized that this was not an invitation. It was assault. You recognized that this war was real. You drew your lines. You encircled your fear. You said, "I will not let you in." And they kept coming, in more cunning forms, in quiet gasps, in isolation, in betrayal, in the loneliness of watching people you loved carrying webs of toxicity, in the slow bleed of your confidence, in the creeping shadows of your mind whispering, maybe they were right, maybe you are broken, maybe this ends now. But you didn't. No, you didn't. You locked your jaw and gripped your heart, and you crawled forward. Inch by inch, you pressed. Like a soldier with no base, no reinforcements, no outside backup. You were alone in your trench. And you held the line. That alone is enough to make you more formidable than those who never faced their war. And you digested torture like breakfast, because you refused to let it stay inside you. You turned pain into fuel. You turned humiliation into strategy. You turned the "they told you you'd fail" into the blueprint of your success. Did it hurt? God, yes. Did you scream silently every night? Most certainly. Were there tears and rage and self-loathing? Perhaps. But then you released them. You expelled them. You didn't bury them and rot in them. You transformed them. And that's how you still stand. Think of the psychological battlefield you traversed, the sapping of your will, the undermining of your identity, the stripping away of your security. And yet you reconstructed yourself. You rebuilt with shattered bricks and jagged nails because smooth stones weren't offered. You used the debris. You used the ruins. You found raw strength in broken structures. In what others saw as collapse, you saw a foundation. And the question that echoes, how the hell are you still standing? Because you chose to stand. Because you inflicted on yourself the most powerful weapon of all, will. Will that says, even if I am wounded, I will not concede. Even if they win a battle, they will not win the war. One foot in front of the other, one breath at a time. Even when your vision blurred and your values cracked, you held on. Picture every time the world expected you to fold, to vanish, to lose yourself to the chaos. You didn't. You endured when endurance meant pain. You held your border when the enemy invaded your self-worth. You built your fortress when the terrain of your mind collapsed beneath you. You lifted your sword when your arm trembled. You bled quietly while others wept audibly. You prevailed, and you weren't born of some soft cradle of privilege, something handed to you on a silver platter. You were hammered, shaped in a forge, shamed, tested, provoked, sometimes betrayed, maybe ignored, maybe dismissed. Maybe they said you were nothing. But the thing about being told you're nothing is sometimes it makes you become something. Something vast, something fierce, but something unwilling to be erased, something still standing when others broke. You digested torture like breakfast because you made a choice, that the pain will not be the end of you, but the engine of you. You will not emerge damaged, you will emerge improved. You will not just survive, you will rise, and yes, you confronted demons, internal and external, the ones who walked through you with hands raised in triumph, the ones who whispered your defeat, the ones who danced when you failed. Your mind fought its own war, the world fought its war. You warred on multiple fronts, and you made it. What demon raised you? What interior discipline? What silent vow? What breath held in the darkest night when no one watched? That's your demon, not some evil force. It's you, the part of you that burns even when the furnace is gone, the part of you that will still push when the screams stop, the part of you that will still wake when the storm subsides. That part is your demon, the part that says, I refuse to die. I refuse to surrender. I refuse to be defined by the cruelty I endured. Legions may have fallen, minds have fractured, wills have buckled. But you have not. You are here. You are still standing. And the power of that fact is immeasurable. Because behind your calm exterior, there lies an entire war zone of your own making. Behind your quiet mouth, there is a roar kept for when you choose. Behind your steady step, there are scars no one sees, and each scar, each broken piece, each whisper of terror is now a badge of honor, a remnant of the battlefield, a testament to the soldier you became. So let the world wonder how you stand. Let them scratch their heads and murmur, how is that possible? Let them see your shadow on the wall and sense your silent victory. They will ask, and you may never answer fully. You don't need to explain. You just need to exist. Your very presence is the answer. Your very breathing is the proof. Your very continuing is the defiance. Remember, the darkest nights make the strongest souls. The deepest wounds spawn the fiercest survivors. The harshest trials give birth to rare warriors. The psychological war you endured wasn't optional. It was the firing pit that forged you. And you walked out not as ashes, but as steel. Not as a whisper, but as a declared force. Not as someone who gave up, but as someone who became. You had moments when surrender seemed easier, when the weight of your history bent your spine, when the voices in your head sounded louder than life itself, when you tried to hide, when you thought, maybe this is enough, maybe this is the decline. But you remembered that someone once told you you couldn't, and you said, "That's why I must." Because if you give them what you expect, if you let them define you, you're lost. But if you exceed it, if you defy it, you become unbounded. And so you digest torture like breakfast. Because breakfast is the first meal, the meal you take when you rise. You rose each morning facing your battle, and you took the pain, and you swallowed it, and you made it part of your fuel. You turned the bitter bile into fire. You took every insult, every disregard, every moment of isolation, and you absorbed it, not passively but as conversion, because you knew you had to become stronger than what tried to break you. So stand now in this moment and acknowledge the magnitude of what you achieved. Not everyone looks at you and sees the full war. They might see the smile. They might see the calm. They might see someone doing their job, living their life. But you know. You know the trenches, the midnight screams, the cold sweat, the suffocating doubt, the moments of collapse that you held back. You know that your success is not accidental. It is earned. It is carved in night after night of pushing when no one applauded. It is forged in the silence when the world was unaware. Let that knowledge give you power. Let it give you rightful pride, not arrogance, but calm recognition. I have been through what most cannot stand. I have faced what others ran from. I have looked into the void and returned. And that means something. That means I am alive, not just physically, but spiritually. I am more than a survivor. I am a victor. And now the world may throw new challenges. New storms will gather. New psychological assaults will assemble. But you are ready. Your foundation is now not sand. It is bedrock. Your mind is not fracture-prone. It is battle-tested. Your will is not tentative. It is ironclad. So when the next wave comes, you won't flee. You will brace. You will raise. You will hold. Because you've already been to hell and back, and the return journey only sharpened you. Your presence in this universe matters. Because you show proof that trauma is not the end. That psychological blitzkrieg can be overcome. That the world will try to break you, but you can choose to rebuild, choose to rise, choose to conquer. Your story is one that others will not see in the blink of an eye. They will not know the nights of agony, the endless loops of self-doubt, the times you screamed inside and held the mouth shut. But they will see the result, you still standing, and that sight is enough to inspire. So carry your scars proudly, not as trophies for vanity, but as markers of survival. Not as shame, but as strength. When you touch your chest and feel the bones still intact, remember, those bones supported the fight. When you look at your hands and see calluses or tremors or faint lines, know they held the swords. When you look at your mind and see the traces of what you endured, recognize the resilience. That mind didn't break. It adapted. It overcame. It continues. And every moment you walk into a new day, you win a quiet victory. Every conversation you have where you don't retreat is a victory. Every task you complete despite the weight of what you carry is a victory. Life may not bend to you yet, but you already bent fate to you when you refused to fall. Life might throw chaos, and you will move through it as water through rock, powerful, unstoppable, enduring. Let no one minimize what you achieved. Let no one frame you as just surviving, because surviving is half life. You are more. You are thriving. You are operating. Whether you feel like it today or not, you are alive, and you are still advancing. And not everyone can claim that. Not everyone can look behind them and say, I emerged, I exist, I rise, I persist. So I ask you again, in a voice that echoes in the corridors of your inner fortress, How TF are you still standing? The answer is, because you willed it, because you fought it, because you refused to let darkness become the owner of you, because when you were beneath the weight of your past, you refused to bury your future, because you said yes to one more breath when the scream said no, because you made your pain a stepping stone rather than a tomb. And now you claim your place, not as a victim, not as a case study, not as a collapsed blueprint, but as a warrior, as a being forged by chaos into order, as someone who knows the battlefield of the mind, not because they read it, but because they lived it and they won it. You are war-tested and battle-ready. You are fireproof. You are steel-tempered. You are still standing. So, step forward. Walk into the daylight of your making. Let the dawn be your witness. Let the echoes of your past tremble at your stride. Let your presence tell the story louder than your words ever could. And whenever you question, whenever you falter, remind yourself, I have been through worse. I have seen the darkest night. I have tasted the deepest pain. I am still here. I still stand. And that, my friend, that is everything. And so you breathe in now, not just oxygen, but the weight of everything you've carried, everything you've survived. And with that breath, you remind the universe, it could not break you. It tried, through whispers and screams, through betrayal and silence, through the slow drip of psychological erosion. It came for your identity, your sense of safety, your very belief in tomorrow. But you held the line, and more than that, you became the line. There's no medal for what you did, no parade, no ceremony, and that's what makes it even more powerful. Because you kept walking not for applause, not for recognition, but because your soul simply wouldn't let you collapse. When everything screamed, give in, when every inner voice echoed, you're done, there was still that one ember inside you, glowing under the ashes, whispering, not yet. That ember, it's still burning, stronger now, fiercer. You turned it into your forge, into the fire that reforged your broken parts into something far more enduring than anything you had before the pain. This wasn't a recovery. This was a rebirth, not a return to who you were, but a transformation into something new, something unshakable, not unscarred, not untouched, but unruled, no longer owned by the weight that tried to suffocate you. And yes, it changed you. Let's not pretend you're the same person you were before the war began. That version of you was untested, innocent, unshielded. And while there may be grief for what was lost in that old version of you, what stands now is far more terrifying to your enemies and far more powerful to the world. What stands now is a figure that walked through internal chaos and built a throne from it. Every single day you chose to move, to breathe, to not give up, was a revolution in itself. There were days your own reflection didn't recognize you, days when your heartbeat felt like a betrayal, reminding you that you were still here while others didn't understand the war inside your skull. But you stayed, you endured, you fought with no army, no audience. Your only companion was will, and you made that will a fortress. Now you carry something few possess, a mind that's been broken and reassembled, a will that's been tested by fire and sharpened by ice. You hold insight, not from books, not from lectures, but from survival, from living through nights that stretched like endless corridors, from facing down the version of yourself that almost didn't make it, and choosing, with trembling hands and tear-streaked eyes, to keep walking forward anyway. They can't understand it, and that's okay. They ask, how are you still standing? As if there's a logical answer, but there isn't. Because this was never about logic. It was about instinct, fire, grit, something primal and ancient inside you that refused to die. The same thing that pushes seeds through concrete, that calls stars to shine through galaxies of darkness. That same force lives in you. And it didn't just help you survive the war. It taught you how to live beyond it, how to operate while the ruins still smoldered, how to grow flowers in the ash. That's something they'll never grasp unless they've seen it, unless they've tasted their own mind turning on them, unless they've been there when the noise is so loud it's silent, when the numbness is so deep it burns. You're not standing by accident. You are standing because you earned it. You're still standing because you were built for endurance. You were built for this kind of war. Not because it was fair, not because you asked for it, but because you adapted to it. Every trial that was meant to drown you, Mun only taught you how to breathe underwater. You learned the art of navigating the impossible and doing it alone. You became your own anchor, your own light, your own answer. And here's what they don't see when they ask how you're still standing. They don't see the years it took to trust yourself again. The nights of forcing your limbs to move when your heart wanted to quit. The mental shackles you broke one link at a time. The way you silenced every voice that told you to disappear. They don't see the hours spent rebuilding from dust, crafting a new identity, not built on who they said you were, but who you decided to become. You didn't just weather psychological warfare. You evolved through it. And you didn't become cold, you became precise. You didn't become cruel, you became aware. You didn't lose compassion. You simply became discerning about where you give your energy. Because you know how costly it is. You learned that peace is a weapon, and silence is a strategy. You learned that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest one. It's the one who knows what it took to rebuild after collapse. You are no longer seeking permission to exist. You are claiming your space. You're not walking around begging for people to understand you anymore. That era is done. The era of trying to explain your pain to people who have no capacity to hold it, over. Now you walk in quiet certainty, the kind that makes others uneasy. Not because you threaten them, but because they sense the power of someone who's been to the edge of their own soul and returned carrying fire. That's what you hold now, fire. That's what people feel when they say, there's something different about you. That's not arrogance. That's earned presence. That's the weight of a life that's been shattered and reforged. That's the gravity of someone who's danced with darkness and didn't get swallowed. That's not attitude. It's survival, distilled into power. You are still standing because you weren't raised to break. You were raised to bend, to adapt, to outlast. The pain didn't choose you, but the purpose did. And now, you walk as one who carries not just their own victory, but the blueprint for others. You hold the map, written in tears and silence, of how to come back from what most never return from. You are living proof that the mind, even in its most fragile state, can become a fortress. Let them ask. Let them keep wondering. Because the truth is, you don't owe the world an explanation. You owe yourself a celebration. You owe yourself the space to finally breathe deeply and fully, without fear of the next collapse. You owe yourself the pride of knowing that you are still standing, not just in body, but in soul, in will, in force. So hold your head high, not because life's been easy, but because you made it anyway. Not because you never doubted, but because you kept going even through the doubt. And if they ever ask again, how are you still standing? You don't need to answer. Just smile. because they'll never truly understand. But you do, and that's more than enough.